Hello, everyone. Welcome. Tonight, I'm going to be we're going to be reviewing the introduction to a new book, a very important book, I believe. Um, that's going to open a lot of eyes, I think, and I think it's going to be very helpful in fighting this cultural revolution that we are in the middle of. Um, Let me just bring this up real quick here. So this is the book here. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago. I mentioned it that it was coming out. It was released on February 29th, so just about a week ago. The authors are Logan Lansing, also with James Lindsay. It's called "The Queering of the American Child: How a New School Religious Cult Poisons the Minds and Bodies of Normal Kids." So, I highly recommend that you get this book, that you read this book, that you share it with, share what you learned from it with everybody you know. This is a key topic for understanding what's going on. It's a major topic for understanding what's going on, and this will be very helpful in the fight. So before I start, I just want to reiterate once again that when the word queer, the word queering, the word queer does not mean gay. Gay and queer are two separate concepts. I know, and I've mentioned this before, I know in the past they were conflated. Queer was used as a slur against gay people in the past. Some gay people tried to kind of try to take the word on to try to destigmatize it. So I know in the past there was some conflation with the words and the meanings of the words. But understand that that's no longer the case. Okay, it's a different topic, and I just want to make that clear right off the bat. It's very important to know that. So as a matter of fact, here I'm just going to show you two things from the authors just to kind of drive that point home. This is from the author Logan Lansing. It says, "Queer has essentially nothing to do with being lesbian, gay, or bisexual. It is by definition whatever is at odds with the normal, the legitimate, and the dominant." And he's quoting Halpern, David Halpern's book from 1995. It is perhaps the most corrosive and destructive political program to ever escape the academy. Here's just a quick blurb on it from the other author, James Lindsay. "Queerness, it must be understood, has very little to do with one's sexuality at all. It is not a state of being, as you see below in academic language. It's a political," well, this was a tweet thread, so he's referring to other posts that he has in his thread. But anyway, he says, "It's a political position opposed to normalcy and legitimacy, framed as being opposed to having to be normal for other people." Okay, so I just want to make that clear right off the bat. That this book is not about gay people. It's not an attack on gay people. This is not referring to gay people. So I just want to show you here. This was the review of the book that I put on Amazon. It says, right? I mean, you can read it here. It says, "This book can save America." So right off the bat, I mean, you might think that sounds like, like I'm exaggerating, kind of trying to hype this book up beyond what it is. I'll explain to you in a minute why I believe that is the case. and why this book is so important. Queer theory is a political ideology that has been incorporated into schools and is a direct attack on children. If it is not stopped, it will destroy everything. As more people learn what it is, there will be a growing resistance to it. This easy-to-read book clearly explains what it is and how dangerous it is. Read this book. Share what you learn from it with your family and friends. Get the word out. Help save our children and our country. Okay, so just a quick minute on why I think that this book can save America, why I think this book is so important. So queer theory, the queer ideology is highly destructive. We can start to see it. I mean, everybody can start to see it happening with what's happening in schools, with what's happening with children, with the transgender movement being their bodies being chemically and physically, mutilated and altered before they even know what, they're young kids. They're not even adults. And this is happening. So we can see this, we can see what's happening. It's visible. People see how dangerous it is. This is a topic that can get a lot of people's attention because it's visible. They can see the damage pretty much, very clearly. And the more they learn about it, and the more they learn, the more they understand that this is not about gay people, right? This is an ideology that has attached it to the gay movement, that has hijacked the pride flag, like I talked about a couple episodes ago in my episode, the war on normal. I went through that. So once more people start to understand this issue, there will be a greater pushback against this queer ideology. And queer is one of the most destructive, if not the most destructive, branches of wokeness. It falls under the woke umbrella. It's one of the critical theories that fall under the woke umbrella, and it's highly destructive. So I just wanted to kind of make that point right off the bat, why I think this book is so important and why I think it can literally save America. If we can get a foothold with people starting to see this and understand this, right? Then we can gain some traction. So that's my hope. I mean, if people don't see the danger of this and don't understand the danger of this, I don't know what to say in terms of the hope of the future of our country. That's pretty sad. So what I'm saying is, like, people have to see what's going on. They have to understand this stuff and how much destruction it's doing. So here's the title of the book. I'm just going to zoom in on a couple of different things here. So the queering of the American child, right? This queer agenda is a direct attack on children. I mean, it obviously it attacks adults. It's attacking basically anything, but it's a direct attack on children because it wants to destabilize them. It wants to get to them early, and it wants to prevent them from becoming socialized into what the queer theorists, what the queer activists believe is an oppressive system, right? So if they can get to the children before the children are socialized into, our normal way of life, right? Queer is a war on normal, is an attack on normalcy, right? And because they think that normalcy, they think our society is an oppressive system. If they can get to the children before they are socialized into that society, into that normalcy, right? Then they can turn things upside down. And that is what they want to do, destabilize these children and get to them before they are socialized into society. So the next part of the title of the book here, and I know this is kind of fuzzy because I blew it up from a smaller font, but so how a new school religious cult poisons the minds and bodies of normal kids. This is a religious cult, and this book gets into that, and it's poisoning the kids. It's poisoning them, and you have to understand, like, they don't go to school one day, get poisoned, and then come home and they're totally different, right? This is a slow drip poison. It's a slow drip poison. They're getting this slow drip constantly in school, in social media, through their the shows they watch, the entertainment that they're getting from TV or YouTube, whatever they're getting, they're watching, their shows and stuff. This is a slow drip poison, and it's affecting their minds and the bodies of normal kids. So last portion, another segment on the cover of the book is this apple, right, with the rainbow colors, the rainbow flag colors, the rainbow colors inside the apple's been, somebody took a bite out of the apple. And this represents a couple things, right? First of all, you can look at it because it's talking about how this queer agenda is in the schools, and it's a direct attack on kids, right? You can see how it's, the apple is representative, to some degree of teachers, of the teaching profession, right? The old concept of students giving their teacher an apple, whatever. But it is a symbol of the teaching profession, right? And you can see how inside of it is this rainbow flag, which now represents this queer ideology, this queer agenda, right? The other thing that you can think of as this apple is in the Garden of Eden, when Adam and Eve, right? Eve takes the bite of the apple. She's tempted by the apple, takes the bite of the apple to gain a higher knowledge. She's tempted by the snake to gain, to take a bite of the apple and gain a higher knowledge. So that's the other thing that you can think about this. Queer activists believe that they have a higher knowledge, a higher understanding of the world than everybody else, right? And that really even talking to anybody else about it is useless because they haven't taken the bite of the apple. They haven't become critically conscious. We've talked about what critical conscious means, becoming woke. They haven't become woke, so they don't have that higher level of knowledge, right? That the queer activists, the woke activists in general, believe that they have, right? So this is an excellent symbol on the front of this book as well. All right, so on this slide here, I just wanted to talk about how, and this is Lindsay's tweet here. Queer theory is opposed to limiting principles on principle, right? So there are no boundaries. There are no boundaries. They think that boundaries are oppressive to people who don't fit within those boundaries. So they want to abolish all boundaries. And I know, we can get in later as to, you can imagine the boundaries that want to be crossed. But anytime something becomes normalized, then in the minds of the woke, in the minds of the queer activists, they believe that it is now part of the status quo, right? It has become accepted. It has become normalized, which is what the queer activists oppose, anything that has been normalized, right? So this is a perpetual revolution of destruction. No matter what ground they gain, they will never be satisfied, because if they gain ground with the mainstream, right, mainstream society, and something becomes normalized, then people who don't fit within those boundaries are being oppressed. So those boundaries have to be abolished and destroyed. So it's a never-ending revolution. That's what makes it so destructive. So just with woke overall, I just want to hit these few points with woke overall in terms of what makes it so dangerous. Number one, which is what's called standpoint epistemology. And epistemology is just kind of like an academic term for how you know what you know, right? So standpoint epistemology means kind of my truth. This is my truth, right? So if it's like how do I know what I know? Someone who has a standpoint epistemology be like, I know what I know because I am what I am. I am who I am, and what I know is the truth because I am who I am. It's my lived experience. It's my truth, and there's no discussion, right? They believe that they have the higher knowledge than anybody else, and there's no discussion. So what this leads to, a system, a belief system that has no peaceful conflict resolution system. There's no peaceful conflict resolution system, right? The only way for there to be peace is to submit to the woke agenda, is to give in and to agree with like I said, their revolution, their woke agenda. Otherwise, they don't allow for a peaceful conflict resolution system. So right off the bat, that is incredibly dangerous. The other thing is, like was in James Lindsay's tweet just a minute ago, there are no limiting principles. It will not stop. It doesn't stop anywhere. Once it gains ground, it has to move on to the next. It has to break the next boundaries, continually break the next boundaries. So the revolution, the destruction is perpetual. It never stops. Another thing is that there's no single leader. There's not one central, leader of this movement. Each woke cult member, and that's what they are, cult members, is their own leader, is their own God. They literally believe that they have insight into this higher knowledge. And the last thing is they believe that violence is justified, right? Because they believe that the oppression that they feel society is putting them under, they believe that oppression is violence against them. They believe that actual violence against that system, against people that uphold that system, is justified, right? So you have, just quickly running down these 4 points here, and there's there's more that could be talked about, but these are kind of major ones that I want to bring up, right? There's no peaceful conflict resolution system. The revolution is perpetual destruction, nonstop destruction. They don't have a centralized leader that can be taken down, like let's say Mao Zedong in the Chinese Cultural Revolution. When he died, people finally realized that obviously he's not God. People he had them convinced that he was God, and that they had to basically worship and believe everything that he said, right? So that obviously had a big impact on people. But here, there's no single leader. Each member, it's decentralized. As long as the activist is doing something that advances the revolution, they will be supported, and they will be supported, within the cult. Right, and then obviously they believe that violence is justified. So this is pure destruction. This is all the way down. All right, so I'm just gonna jump real quick to. I just want to get into the introduction the book, and I'm actually, we're gonna read through it, or I'm gonna read through it. I want you to kind of get a feel for what this book is like, and get a general sense of what's going on here. And like I said, I highly recommend you get this book and read it and share it with your family and friends. So I'm going to go ahead and read through the introduction, and I'll probably jump in and out a little bit with some comments as well. The American education is in the grip of a religious cult, which started in the 1990s as a small group of abnormal, weird, and deviant disciples, has since ballooned into a tremendous political force in our schools. This cult preaches a new religion of sex, gender, and sexuality, and they use school policy and teaching practices to brainwash children into their poisonous doctrine. This cult, excuse me here, and I can't put it on the screen here, so I'm just gonna be reading through it, and like I said, I may be popping in with some other slides just to kind of emphasize some points. Let me see here. So this cult has long known that classrooms are fertile recruiting grounds with soft, vulnerable targets. Today, children across America find themselves under the spell of queer theory. Queer theory is based on the mythical religious teachings of Michel Foucault, Judith Butler, Eve Kosofsky Sedgwick, Deborah B. Britzman, and many others. These queer theorists created the queer theory gospels that cultists worldwide now draw upon to push children to destabilize tradition, eliminate social norms, and poison their minds and bodies. Queer theory is the revealed knowledge that motivates thousands of kids to wield political activism against society and themselves. Children influenced by queer theory adopt new gender identities, fantasize about social transitioning, perform drag, and experiment with fictional sexualities and related behaviors. The leaders of this cult, the inner circle, let me do this real quick. I'm just going to pop over here real quick because this is something that I'd like you to... So this is kind of the framework or the general framework of a cult, of how cults are organized, right? And so we're gonna get into the authors are going to kind of explain how these different layers, these different levels of the cult kind of interact with queer theory and queer activism, right? But if you kind of look at this image, you can see that, and I'm looking at just I'm not looking at the words on the right hand side, just the picture here. The inner circle is at the top with relatively few amount of people, right? And then outside of that, they have what's called the inner school, and then below that they have what's referred to as the outer school, and this is kind of like the majority of what people are who are kind of in this system. These are pretty, the on the street activists, or the basically the most active people for the agenda. So here it just talks about, right, the inner circle, strategic leaders, possibly non-believers, chosen for loyalty. They manipulate cult dynamics and doctrines for control and power, influencing members' identities and actions. That's the inner circle, right? So the inner school is adept members versed in doctrine, shaping the outer school towards collective cult identity, ethos, commitment, and activism. And the outer school here initiates minimally doctrine aware. Like they might not know really what the queer theory inner circle has written about, or has the specifics of the theory, right? They're just out. They're feeling off of emotion, basically. So let me just jump back to the book here. The leaders of this cult, the inner circle, spend much of their time directing the cult's bleeding edge secrets, plans, and strategies. This group doesn't believe in all aspects of cult doctrine, but they know they can use the cult strategically to achieve their ultimate goal, power. The inner circle wields the cult's tremendous monetary and cultural power to finance and influence cult activism and expansion. The inner circle is home to the leaders of global organizations, universities, industries, and governments. Surrounding the inner circle of the cult are groups of awakened scholars and activists who form the cult's inner circle. Inner school. Right? This is the next layer below the inner circle. The inner school is home to activists, academics, organizations, subject matter experts, teachers, consultants, and policymakers who have undergone cult initiation and are familiar with the cult's teachings and practices. They are the cult's true believers in most cases, or in some others, opportunistic players who know the cult's doctrine thoroughly and use it to advance their own social, political, and material interests. Those in queer theory's inner school are called queer activists. Queer activists advance cult doctrine by studying the gospels of the cult and by conditioning the beliefs and behaviors of lower cult members and potential initiates. Queer activists in the inner school do the work of meeting the inner circle's demands. Queer activists are wholly committed to the cult and have mostly severed ties with anyone who don't share their faith. The inner school's cult attachment is both intellectual and emotional, and its members are fiercely loyal to the teachings and prescriptions of the cult doctrine, queer theory, with which they are considerably familiar. The inner school queer activists defend the cult at all costs. The largest layer of the cult is home to initiates, the outer school. The people in the outer school are drawn to the cult because it offers them enlightenment and a path to salvation. Their ties to the cult are overwhelmingly social and emotional. In fact, these cult initiates are mostly unaware of the cult's deeper doctrine and goals, and in many cases, only know little of the doctrine except the surface level. In most cases, cult initiates have never read any of the cult's gospels and have no idea what the cult's obvious or hidden goals are. On the other hand, their friends are in the cult and think it's what it means to be a good person, right? So they're kind of in with their social circle in terms of, if they want to stay in good standing with their social circle, everyone kind of has this belief system, that they all believe in it, and to question it in that social circle, to try to oppose it within that social circle, that they will be kicked out. They will be kicked out immediately. Not only kicked out, but they will be like targeted for being accused of a bigot and being harassing and everything else. So there's a lot of social pressure to remain in this belief system, to remain in the cult. Their initiated friends create a social circle that defines inclusion in terms of accepting and promoting the cult's doctrine. So there's that word again, like inclusion, right? So, and this is what it's all about. It's about including people who have the woke belief system, right? If you do not have that belief system, you will not be included. And you will be, obviously, you will be attacked and labeled a bigot. The outer school is home to those who have been deceived by the cult's manipulation, propaganda, and activism. The initiates of the outer school are the cult's primary victims and serve as cash cows, foot soldiers, sacrifices, and depending on the person, potential inner school converts. Right. So if you're if you're highly effective as an outer school member, then you may find your way up into the inner school at some point. Like all cult recruiters, queer activists use emotionally manipulative methods to control cult members and recruit new outer school initiates. For instance, The cult love bombs potential recruits with affection and praise. Remember that term, love bomb or love bombs, right? Because that is definitely a tactic that they use when they're getting people initially coming into this worldview and into this cult. Queer activists welcome recruits into a safe and inclusive environment where they feel like they are the most important people in the world and in which they are protected from ideas that might challenge cult doctrine, something experts in cult psychology call milieu control. So just real quick too, just to jump back to these slides real quick. I want to show, this is part of that, the love bombing. You can see this G-Safe here is an organization that promotes this worldview, this ideology into schools. And this particular page is developing youth leadership, right? You can see all their shirts here, right? You are loved, you are loved, you are loved. So for someone who just comes into this, who starts thinking about, maybe they're transgender or maybe they're, whatever, they feel an attachment based off of what they're learning in school, what they're seeing on social media, whatever. They're kind of being brainwashed into this. As soon as they make any movement towards the group, they are love bombed and to be brought in as quickly as possible. Just another picture here showing that same kind of concept of how happy it is to be a member of this group. This also shows how they use the rainbow pride flag, how they use the pride flag to confuse people into thinking that this is about being gay, this is about being, gay kids. And they use the slogan here once again, love is love, right? So this is all about making people think it's about sexual orientation, that it's about gay kids, but the T, the Q, the plus, right? Transgender, the queer, the plus. These are, the queer theory is definitely a political ideology. Transgender gets into basically you're leaving reality, right? They have no association, with the sexual orientation of lesbians, gays, and bisexuals, right? So it's a completely different mindset. Okay. The cult preys on the confused, vulnerable, and disenfranchised with a siren's call of total affirmation. Initiates in the outer school feel euphoric when they find the cult, a feeling that is typical of stepping into any cult, at least initially. Queer activists offer them solutions to resolve all of their confusion, alienation, loneliness, and pain. An affirming social environment and something to do that feels meaningful and productive. Love bombing is part of the positive part of a cyclical process of abuse during cult initiation. The negative part of the cycle involves deliberately inducing trauma to create conditions of vulnerability, embarrassment, and even humiliation. Taken together, this cycle of abuse is called trauma bonding, and queer activists skillfully deploy it as a mechanism to initiate and control cult members. Trauma bonding involves exposing children to age-inappropriate content related to sex, gender, and sexuality, causing deep psychological disturbances. Right? So, they're really trying to destabilize the children and just upend their whole ability to kind of have a normal socialization into society. These disturbances generate emotions that are difficult to cope with, especially for innocent children who aren't yet equipped to deal with such topics, especially on fraudulent terms. Once disturbed, children search for affirmation, healing, kindness, and love. They find their relief in the very hands that have just abused them. Cults have long used this tactic to foster a growing state of social and emotional dependency among their targets. The cycle of abuse and relief found in trauma bonding serves multiple purposes within the cult structure. Firstly, it solidifies the hierarchical control with queer activists exerting authority over cult initiates. By subjecting initiates to this cycle of trauma and relief, queer activists reinforce the cult doctrine of queer theory under conditions of isolation and dependency. This environment is ripe for conducting initiations and rites, often discreetly executed in after-school clubs, tailored for this very indoctrination. So just give you an example of these clubs. So this is Glisten. It's an organization that's all over the place. It has its hands in basically all the schools, all the trying to help organize these school clubs. So it's hard to see here because it's very small print at the bottom. But what they're creating in most of the schools was what they're calling the GSA clubs, and they used to be what the GSA used to stand for Gay Straight Alliance. That's what it was for years. Gay Straight Alliance, right? That's what these clubs were about, right? So that's what it was. But they've changed it since the gender ideology and his queer theory has taken over the gay movement and taken over their symbols, like I said, like the pride flag, the rainbow flag. Now the GSA stands for Gender and Sexuality Alliance, right? So gay has been pushed out, right? Straight so-called allies have been pushed out, right? This is about gender and sexuality now is what it's turned into. Okay. So furthermore, the cyclical nature of this abuse aids in maintaining secrecy within the cult. Children don't want to rat out their abusers when those very abusers make them feel included and loved for who they really are. As initiates become more deeply involved, the secrecy surrounding these practices grows, creating a barrier against external scrutiny and criticism. The emotional roller coaster of trauma bonding also reinforces loyalty as initiates, craving relief and acceptance, become more tightly bound to the cult's ideology and community. In this way, queer activists not only control their current members, but also effectively recruit new ones, preying on their vulnerabilities and offering them a seemingly supportive and affirming environment. The euphoria that new initiates experience upon joining the cult is a typical yet misleading allure of such abusive systems, disguising the deeper, more insidious layers of manipulation and control at play. As we will see later, queer activists deliberately and knowingly engage in this process by inducing and resolving personal identity crises in children through the process of queer education. What the cult offers its initiates is a subscription to endless work on behalf of the cult, primarily in engaging in its core activities and recruiting new members. Some of the work queer activists offer is social activism, which faces outward, though much of it is inward-facing work of personal transformation. The inner work transforms its victims into queer cultists, people who identify as avatars of the cult doctrine. The outer work solidifies the social environment of the cult and strengthens commitment to the cult while spreading it to others. Strict social expectations with powerful social and emotional rewards, affirmation, celebration, belonging, and punishments, criticism, problematizing, struggle, are tied to both the inner and outer cult work. When the cult can't find vulnerable people to bolster recruitment, it creates them. The cult is very good at convincing ordinary people that society has mistreated and abandoned them, or will if they confess any of their personal secrets, questions, or doubts. Queer activists use fear-mongering to convince people that various aspects of their biology, personality, habits, and interests are relentlessly attacked by mostly invisible forces hidden in language and the common sense, quote, and the quote, common sense, unquote, of day-to-day life. They teach their victims that the world will reject them for aspects of who they are, but the cult will accept, affirm, and celebrate them. Queer activists train people to be vulnerable by teaching them to look for oppression in everything. In this way, queer theory sells both a problem and the solution to that problem. The cult is obsessed with the logic of the circle. So, right, so they get kids to believe that they are being oppressed by society, that, you know, they show them the problems, and then they give them the solution by love bombing them, bringing them into the cult, showing them, you know, basically seeing the light or becoming woke, attaining this critical consciousness, taking the bite of the apple to gain this higher knowledge, right? And they bring them into the cult. That's how it works. And then once they're in the cult, right? If they're not fully on board, or if there's, you know, they need to show more loyalty to the cult, they will be criticized, they will be struggled, they will be forced even deeper into the worldview, into the ideology, into the cult, right? Until they take on that belief, and it's just that continuing circle as they get sucked deeper and deeper into it. Once in the cult, queer activists use abuse techniques to condition cult attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors. Peer pressure, guilt tripping, gaslighting, and the constant threat of punishment keep the cult in check, on message, and to the task. The messaging relentlessly externalizes the shame and alienation it creates in its victims by pointing at the oppressive society and blaming normal people and normalcy itself for causing those feelings. So if being in the cult and dealing with what they're learning in the cult, or what they're being pressured into believing and pressured into taking activism for, is starting to cause them discomfort, right? The cult tells them that discomfort, that uneasiness is being created by normal society, that is creating those feelings into them. The cult becomes increasingly hermetically sealed social environment for initiates, isolating them more and more from outsiders and outside influences. And the fear of rejection and social isolation keeps people locked into the cult in a cycle of abuse. Many cult members end up emotionally groomed into thinking they cannot live without the cult. For them, the cult is their salvation. Queer activists threaten a loss of salvation anytime a cult member or initiate steps out of line. Queer theory is not merely academic. It is full of religious rituals and observances. The cult distinguishes between in-group and out-group by using preferred pronouns, complex jargon, and code words in greeting and writing. So just to touch base on this preferred pronoun thing, just want to show you here. So this is an article, CNN, a guide to neopronouns from, I don't even know how to pronounce that, A to Z, right? These are some of the pronouns. I want to bring up this I want to bring up just a portion of this article real quick. So, a guide to neopronouns from A to Z. I guess that's pronounced A, right? I just want to read this one section. How to use neopronouns. Here are a few relatively common neopronouns and how to use them from the Human Rights Campaign, which is the United Nations, once again, right? Basically driving this from the United Nations. So here it is, right? No, some of these pronouns may be pronounced differently based on the user, right? So they're so crazy to begin with. Then you have to learn all the different ways of how a certain particular person pronounces it, right? So here we go, right? Whatever this is, commonly pronounced Zier. I asked Zier to come to the movies. Z said yes. Zier or Z, commonly pronounced Zier or Z. This is insanity. This is mental illness. This is complete detachment from reality. The teacher graded Zier's paper today, and Z got an A. Z said, "Here, self, that I'm here, favorite neighbor." All right, so I'm just going to stop there because, I mean, like I said before, this is just complete insanity, complete detachment from reality. But this is the signaling within the cult. This is the language they use. This is how they know who they can identify other cult members, who's in the cult, who's not in the cult, right? So this is the kind of in-group, out-group kind of messaging. So, along with this language that they use, they also basically, the crazy hair dyeing, pink, purple, blue hair dyeing, certain haircuts, these septum rings, are very indicative of this ideology and this cult membership. All right. Cultists signal their fealty with a flag that finds itself in constant revolution. Right, so I talked about too, just kind of real quick as well. I talked about a couple. By the way, just to jump back to the pronoun thing real quick, let me just show this. Real quick, right? Just to show you how this has kind of been, is that insanity, this detachment from reality is being kind of like mainstreamed, right? Let me bring this up real quick. So this is Jeopardy. This is a question on Jeopardy. And I'm just going to play this real quick so you can get a general idea, right?
Parts of speech 6.
Them, Ziers, themself. Chris.
What are pronouns?
Those are pronouns, neo-pronouns. You have 62.
Parts of speech 6.
Them, Ziers, themself. Chris.
What are pronouns?
Those are pronouns, neo-pronouns. You have 62.
I'm just going to stop it for a second. Watch the guy in the middle when this guy says neo-pronouns. Watch this guy like tilt his head. He's like, "What the hell are you talking about? This is insanity." He has no idea what's. To me, it's funny. It's funny. The guy in the middle, his reaction.
Parts of speech 6.
Them, Ziers, themself. Chris.
What are pronouns?
Those are pronouns, neo-pronouns. You have 62.
And that's how he should react, because this is nuts. But the point is showing you this. The point of showing you this is that it's this worldview, this cult, this cult belief system is being mainstreamed into society, right? This is literally a question on Jeopardy. So I just wanted to show you that. And where were we at here? The other thing was the flag, right? So I did the episode 5, the queer war on normal, and in the beginning of it, I covered the evolution of this flag, what they were talking about in the book here. Let me just jump back to that. Right, so it says queer activists dress in religious garb of the drag queen or drag king, or through highly identifiable patterns of dress, grooming, and presentation. Cultists signal their fealty with a flag that finds itself in constant revolution, a never-ending cascade of additional colors, bars, and symbols stitched into its queer fabric. So this was just, like I said, I just wanted to show you this. I was showing the progression of the flag. The original Pride flag was just the rainbow colors. Now it's got the transgender colors here. It also has the black and the brown stripes to represent people of color. And then in this episode, I kind of go through even how it's progressed beyond this constant revolution, this constant adding of stripes to incorporate more and more of this extreme worldview. So, right, there's some of the things that have been added on, right? When it talks about LGBTQ plus, right? Think about, the plus is basically just a never-ending stream of letters and additions of additional detachment from reality, additional, cult indoctrination. Agender Pride Day, International Asexuality Day, Bisexual Awareness Week. That's different. That's part of, bisexual was part of the sexual orientation. That's not part of the radical agenda from the TQ plus. Gender Fluid Visibility Week, Drag Day, Intersex Day of Remembrance, Non-Binary People's Day, Trans Awareness Month, Pansexual and Pan-Romantic Awareness Day, and Pride Month all mark our calendars with cult celebrations. Queer theory demands total submission and obedience. Queer activists isolate, punish, and exclude anyone who contradicts cult doctrine, ritual, or practice. Family and friends are no exception. If they have a problem with the cult has a problem with them. The cult psychologically conditions cult members to abandon loved ones who don't affirm, celebrate, and initiate spiritual awakening. This dynamic guarantees a sense of alienation and isolation, together with a belief that only the cult can provide the initiates with friends or comrades, right? Because this is based in Marxism. This is a communist cultural revolution. Right? So they literally call each other comrades. Acceptance, a sense of social identity and belonging, and a safe refuge from rejection and loneliness. Cognitive dissonance is a cult's go-to method for isolating cult members and potential initiates from their friends and family. Cognitive dissonance is the psychological discomfort, stress, and anxiety one feels when one holds two incompatible beliefs. An example of cognitive dissonance is the feeling someone gets when they love animals but eat meat, or when someone supports a political party but disagrees with many of that party's policies. Cognitive dissonance is the crisis you enter when your incompatible beliefs cause emotional turmoil. Should you love animals or eat meat? Should you vote for the party or vote for the policy? Which belief you betray and how you justify the betrayal? Which belief do you betray and how do you justify the betrayal? Narcissists are famous for generating cognitive dissonance in those they want to control. They use psychological abuse strategically, introducing a barrage or false information and conflicting beliefs to their targets. Narcissists manipulate their targets, pushing them deep into cognitive dissonance, leaving them confused and unable to trust their perception of reality. The target is easily controlled in this state because they must rely on their abuser to make sense of the world. So that's an important point too. The whole idea, right? Like I said before, right? They're trying to get people to develop this critical consciousness, to become woke, to believe that they have this higher level of knowledge. So, and it's outside of reality. It's not reality. They're trying to draw people into this make believe world, into this pseudo reality, right? So, and once you get drawn into that pseudo reality, they have complete control because they make the rules in this make believe world. They make the rules. There's nothing that you can say or do to convince them about anything that they don't want to accept, because they are in this pseudo reality world. I mean, you literally, you want to call it kind of like this, a matrix or a another kind of term for it is this wizard circle. They're dragging people into this wizard circle where they have where they make the rules. And if you get brought into that wizard circle, you are lost. You have no chance of defending yourself or convincing them that they're wrong. The target is easily controlled in this state because they must rely on their abusers to make sense of the world. The cult's inner circle becomes the gurus or priests to shepherd the dissonant initiates further into the cult. What we got here? The cult of queer theory is extremely narcissistic. Cult members are excessively interested in themselves, their appearances, and their religious practices. Queer activists are control freaks, and they use cognitive dissonance to recruit new members that they want to control. For instance, the cult will tell a girl that although she looks like a girl, she may be a boy on the inside because she plays with certain toys. This generates anxiety and discomfort in the child, who doesn't understand how she can be a boy while looking like a girl. The cult takes advantage of this new vulnerability to brainwash the child. Queer activists tell her that evil spirits read social constructions, control the world, unfairly labeling children boys and girls, and determining everyone's beliefs, attitudes, and behaviors. Right? So queer activists believes that there's this evil force in society. In this case, this evil force of normalcy. This society, created this socially constructed this idea of what's normal and what's not normal. Right? It's a social construction, and they believe that that social construction is oppressive to them. It's an evil force that's preventing them from doing anything that they want to do. So that's what's meant by this kind of this evil force that they're talking about here, or the evil spirits. The cult tells the child that she can reject this unjust and evil influence and begin to free herself from the prison she was born into. The cult tells her she can escape the evil spirits that control how she looks, loves, and acts. Queer activists coerce the child to take a bite of the apple, right? On the cover of that image on the cover of the book. Coerce the child to take a bite of the apple, introducing to her a special cult knowledge of salvation. After a child has awakened to this special cult knowledge of salvation, they may naturally want to discuss their excitement with their parents. Wrong. Here, the cult sows more cognitive dissonance into the child. Queer activists tell kids that although they love their parents can't understand revelation because they are too old, too stupid, and too brainwashed by the evil spirits that control society. Right? So you see what was trying to be explained here, right? The parents are still under the belief system of the society that they believe has this force, this oppressive force called, in the case of queer theory, it's called, normalcy. They believe normalcy is an oppressive force on them, right? So talking to the parents about it isn't going to help, because they are under the, they believe in the oppressive system is what they're trying to, is what the queer activists kind of do, tell the initiates, tell the kids. This is the theory of this worldview, of this belief system. This system won't accept rule breakers, so the cult tells children their parents won't accept their new cult identity. Queer activists are known for saying, if your parents aren't accepting of your identity, I'm your mom now. There's even a hashtag, free mom hugs. Hashtag free mom hugs. You can buy the shirts on Amazon. So I'll just quickly show you this. All right, so this is what they're talking about here. If your parents aren't accepting of your identity, I'm your mom now. Which is, free mom hugs. Here's the shirt. You can buy it, that it's on Amazon. Trying to, drive that wedge between children and their parents, saying that, come into the cult, we'll be your family. We'll help, we'll guide you. We'll take care of you. Here's a woman, wearing the shirt, free mom hugs. And you can tell she's batshit crazy. If you can't, then, it's definitely an issue, but she's clearly batshit crazy. So just to give you some examples of that. They are also known for taking pains to redefine the word family for initiates as those who accept them for their acceptance of cult doctrine. Read, for being who they really are, authentically, as opposed to the people who would try to protect them from the cult's influences, including flesh and blood family members, especially parents. Children targeted by the cult love their parents, but they also love the promise of of salvation offered to them. The beliefs of their parents, it is suggested, if not outright said, contradict the cult's beliefs. Children learn that evil spirits control their parents, right? That oppressive system of normalcy in the case of queer theory, right? In the case of critical race theory, it would be that oppressive system of white supremacy. In feminism, it would be that oppressive system of the patriarchy, right? So this is all connected. This is all connected. In classical economic Marxism, it would be that oppressive system of capitalism, right? This is how this system works across the board. Children learn that evil spirits control their parents. They believe their parents will likely attempt to stop them from attempting their daring escape from the prison that evil spirits have constructed around them. A child must therefore choose between their parents and the cult to resolve their cognitive dissonance. Queer activists take advantage of this, offering children solutions to manage their crisis, including but not limited to adopting a secretive new cult identity at school, changing their name, using the opposite sex's bathroom, and joining special cult clubs. By doing these things secretly, children aren't upsetting or alerting their parents. At the same time, children get to enjoy their new cult friends and all of the love bombing those friends have in store for them. Queer activists tell children that queer theory is the only way to resolve their anxiety and fear. The cult tells kids that truly loving parents would want them to be happy, even if being happy means keeping secrets. Of course, the cult has used the same tactics on parents. Parents are confused when their children suddenly begin fashioning radical new cult identities. In this confusion, parents ask many questions, wanting to know precisely who convinced their children that they were born in the wrong body. Many parents get furious, rightly so. The cult responds by burying concerned parents in cognitive dissonance and deception. The cult tells parents that the only way to prove that they love their children is to accept, affirm, and celebrate their child's transition into their new cult identity. When parents question this approach, queer activists launch a barrage of academic-sounding cult words and phrases at them. The cult then tells parents that if they don't affirm their child's new cult identity, they are pushing their child to suicidality. You love your kid, right? The cult groomer says. You do anything to protect them, right? Parents don't want their child to join a cult, but they also don't want their child to commit suicide. The choice is false, but the cult drives it home with deceptive and manipulative techniques that it has. Oh, geez, I'm having a tough time with this sentence. Getting tongue-tied. With deceptive and manipulative techniques that it has spent decades refining. Parents become anxious and scared, and many attempt to resolve their contradictory beliefs by joining the cult themselves. Their old questions, concerns, and fears fold into a new faith that the cult knows what is best for their child. Parents begin to think that by handing their child over to the cult, they are loving their child more than ever before. Together, parents and children can fight off evil spirits and free their families from possession. 1 second here. The cult of queer theory has captured our national discussion of sex and sexuality. Queer activists have waged war on our language and have largely succeeded in convincing the average person that gender and gender identity are real things. They are not. The term gender, as used by the cult, and gender identity were invented by the cult. So just real quick here, I want to show you something. Put these slides back up. This is Billboard Chris. He's been going across Canada and the United States and now around the world, raising awareness about the dangers of gender ideology, of queer theory, of putting children on puberty blockers and hormone therapy and having these surgeries. Right? There's a saying that he has that I think is very helpful for people to see and to understand. Right? He says there are 2 sexes, 0 genders, and infinite personalities. Right? So it's very simple. There are 2 sexes, male and female. There are 0 genders. Gender is a made-up term. Gender is a completely made-up term. Don't even use the word gender. And there are infinite personalities. So, whatever. If a boy is acts very feminine, that's his personality. That does not make him a girl, right? If a girl is a tomboy, likes whatever, playing with trucks instead of dolls, whatever, right? That's fine. That's great. That does not make her a boy. So I just want to show you that. It's a pretty straightforward and pretty simple, explanation, but it hits the nail on the head. All right, I'll come back to this one here in a second. Astonishingly, queer activists have even convinced large swaths of the population that sex isn't real, that men and women are political categories. According to a Pew Research Center study conducted in May of 2022, quote, half of adults ages 18 to 29 say someone can be a man or a woman, even if that differs from the sex they were assigned at birth. This compares with about 4 in 10 of those ages 30 to 49 and about a third of those 50 and older. Unquote. You will notice that sex assigned at birth was used rather than sex or observed sex, right? So the queer theorists believe that when babies are born, the doctor assigns that baby a sex rather than observing it, clearly seeing whether it's a boy or a girl, right? But in their mind, they're saying, the doctor assigns that, and that that boy or girl may not want to be a boy or girl when they grow up, or a male or female, man or woman. This is the disconnected from reality thinking of this worldview. Let me just jump back here. All right. The question itself indicates queer theory's ascendance in our culture and politics. So just real quick too, right? This is where this meme kind of comes from. This is Zachary Elliott. He does a lot of work raising awareness about, what exactly, where exactly the definition of sex comes from, and what, how we determine someone's sex. So the sex chromosomes, it's not the chromosomes. He says, right, the sex chromosomes are a very reliable marker for male and female in humans and mammals in general. It's a very reliable marker, but that is not how how their sex is determined. But the definition of male and female is not about chromosomes. It's about what gamete type or reproductive system your reproductive system is organized to produce. So the gamete type, whether you produce large gametes, eggs, females produce eggs, or a small gamete type, which is the sperm, males produce sperm, right? So there's no third gamete type. There's only two. It's either a large gamete, an egg, or a small gamete, the sperm. That's it. And how your reproductive system has developed, how it was organized to produce one or the other. This is where when I was just talking before about doctors, how the queer theorists, the queer activists believe that doctors are assigning the baby a male or female when they're born rather than observing it, clearly seeing it, right? So this is where this meme came from, right? Is it a boy or a girl? The doctor's saying, well, we'll let the kindergarten teacher decide, right? This is where that meme kind of comes from, which is obviously ridiculous. And that's the whole point of a meme, to kind of point that out. Queer activists have lied, cheated, and bullied their way into all of the places religious cults shouldn't be. Even Nature, one of the world's most read and prestigious scientific journals, publishes cult doctrine. A 2015 article titled "Sex Redefined" argues that sex isn't binary and that biologists may have been building a more nuanced view of sex, but society has yet to catch up, unquote. The article draws its last breath in the final statement. If you want, quote, if you want to know whether someone is male or female, it may be best just to ask, unquote. Insanity. Every person can be categorized by whether they possess the reproductive anatomy that, under conditions of normal development, will produce small gametes, sperm, or large gametes, ova, during the period of sexual maturity and fertility. If they can't produce large or small gametes, or can produce both, which is not possible. He says, the authors say here, which is exceptionally rare, if it can occur at all. It has never occurred at all. It's not. They're not producing. Anyway, that's just to clarify that. Something has gone wrong. There is a defect. There is no third gamete, no intermediate gametes, and no confusion about the fact that biological anomalies sometimes present. More importantly, there is no situation in which a healthy male or female body leaves any ambiguity or confusion about the person's sex. There is no room for nuance. What passes for nuance from queer activists are distortions and emotional manipulations used as a lever to pry something open so the cult can gain control of it. It gets worse. The American Psychological Association, APA, not only publishes cult doctrine, it practices cult magic. Regarding doctrine, the APA describes the ascendancy of gender diversity as a sea change that has hit land and rocked the earth. At home, in communities, in society, and across the globe. That's one hell of a statement from the leading scientific and professional organization representing psychology in the United States, with more than 146,000 researchers, educators, clinicians, consultants, and students as its members. As for the practice of cult magic, the APA pushes the gender affirmative approach, which is the cult's way of forcing both the individuals and society to accept queer theory. In July of 2023, the APA joined 62 other organizations in submitting a letter to Congress that urges Congress to protect access to gender-affirming care for transgender youth. The letter in part reads, "Healthcare to treat gender dysphoria is medically necessary, evidence-based care provided to transgender people to alleviate the psychological distress associated with incongruence between an individual's gender and their sex assigned at birth. Gender dysphoria is recognized as a serious medical condition by every major U.S. medical association and World Health Organization." Side note, they're all captured by this ideology. And just so you know, this healthcare encompasses mental health counseling, social affirmation, for example, using a person's chosen name and pronouns, and medical services such as hormone therapy that allow transgender people to live safely and authentically as who they are. Every major medical and mental health association in the U.S., representing more than 1.3 million U.S. doctors, supports individualized, age-appropriate, gender-affirming care that promotes the health and well-being of transgender people. Because if they don't, they will lose their job. Right? Just so you know, their institutions, their organizations, their associations have been captured by this ideology. If doctors do not go along with it, they will lose their license. So you have the new doctors coming in, being indoctrinated into this in the medical schools, in the psychology programs, in all of the health industry, right? So they're being indoctrinated into it. You have the older doctors who are being silenced by the fact that if they open their mouth, they will lose their livelihood, and they'll lose their license. So, to be clear, these organizations define transgender as anyone whose gender identity differs from their sex assigned at birth. So the APA, along with 62 additional co-conspirators, including the American Psychiatric Association, the American College of Physicians, the Endocrine Society, the National Association of Social Workers, and the Boston Medical Center, have urged Congress to oppose any legislation that would prevent the practice of psychosocial, chemical, and surgical intervention on any child that identifies as anything other than the sex that they are. Every major medical and mental health association in the United States is under the cult's spell. So, and understand, well, let me finish this here real quick. Gender affirming care is cult magic. That's the best way to describe it. Like all cult magic, it plays on the social and emotional milieu to mystify its targets. As stated, gender affirming care relies on psychological counseling to affirm the delusional state of the patient and social affirmation, in addition to high commitment, irreversible interventions like injections of hormones and hormone blockers and surgeries, all tailored to make the cult doctrine come true in the lives and bodies being practiced upon. Affirmation is the cult magical process, which is obvious when you realize that standard practice in medicine is to treat and hopefully cure pathological states, not affirm and further them. So just to understand, and let me see here. There's a throughout the whole process, all of the not only are all the incentives lined up to affirm the child in this belief, but there's also a deferred responsibility and accountability, right? So you have children, you have the seeds planted of this queer cult worldview, the seeds being planted in the minds of these children in school, on their in their entertainment, on their social media apps, for everywhere. It's coming at them from everywhere. The seeds are being planted. They might start having doubts. They might start having questions. So if they mention to somebody at school that potentially they're having questions, or they're not sure, or whatever, then what happens is they get referred to a school psychologist or somebody, a school counselor, somebody in the school, right? So they go to that counselor. The child has already has a referral to that counselor. The counselor is in a situation of being, whether they want to or not, they're under the situation of having to affirm this child's belief. Otherwise, they're in the position of potentially losing their job or being outcast from the school community, from their professional community. So the only thing they're going to do with that child is to completely affirm what that child says and believes, and move them on to the next, maybe to a gender clinic, or whatever, and this is where obviously at some point the parents may be brought in, depending on the age of the child. The parents may be brought in, but that's where the parents are gaslit into going along with the program. Otherwise, they will be told that their child will commit suicide, right? So all along the lines. Then the gender affirming, the gender clinic. This child has already been referred to the counselor by the teacher, referred to the gender clinic by the school, by the counselor, or by the psychologist. Then potentially they get referred to a doctor at some point for surgery. And once again, the doctor sees that this child has already been referred all along the lines. All of these people are under the professional, or under the pressure from their professional organizations to affirm these children. And it's just basically a treadmill. Once the kid gets the question in their mind, the only thing that can be done is to affirm their belief. A treatment of helping the child work through this, as and understand that there may be other things going on, whatever it is, psychological problems, mental health issues, whatever they are, they're not allowed to be investigated and as possible causes for this. Sadly, there are powerful reasons that millions of doctors and mental health professionals now practice the magic. It makes you look progressive instead of bigoted, which is another cult magic spell. There's an enormous demand for it, and there's a ton of money in it. Queer activists have been casting spells on administrators, educators, and children for a long time. There is a reason why the people in your life now think that sex, gender, and sexuality are muddy and confusing. Likewise, there is a reason educators fill your children's classrooms and libraries with pride flags and pornographic books. It would be unimaginable to think that schools would hide a social transition from parents in the 1980s. The terminology to describe such a situation didn't yet exist. There are reasons why all this is happening, and this book will help you understand those reasons. What follows will help you understand what the cult of queer theory believes, where it comes from, how it got into schools, and what it's attempting to do with children. In part 1, we will explain the problem in greater detail. We will also spend a significant amount of time discussing the theory of queer theory. It's going to get heavy, and we have all the confidence in the world that we can make it through some difficult chapters together. Some people want the quick answers the 30,000-foot summary. We'll cover that, but we'll also cover what queer theory is precisely. The people who have had only the quick answers have been bulldozed for decades because those people didn't understand what they were dealing with. It's one thing to understand what the cult is doing, and it's another to understand why it is doing what it is doing. If we don't understand the why, then we can't understand how to reject the magic, protect our children from the cult, and start rebuilding our normal lives. In part 2, we will explore how queer theory is practiced in schools. We'll rely heavily on queer theory literature, using queer activists' own words to share how they practice queer theory on children. We'll touch on how queer activists structure their classrooms, how they teach children to practice queer theory on and for themselves, how they put children into states of crisis that are then resolved through social and emotional learning, SEL, and how they navigate parental resistance by hiding the whole project from parents. We wrote The Queering of the American Child, how a new school religious cult poisons the minds and bodies of normal kids, for anyone who wants to learn about the queering of children in our schools. That said, what follows is written with parents and grandparents in mind. I, Logan, am a parent of 2 young boys. I started researching what's happening in our schools in 2019 because my wife and I were preparing to be parents. I had seen enough in the news to know something was very wrong with our educational system. I've spent the last 4 years learning everything I can about queer theory. For most of this time, I've been nose down in the primary source literature, reading the cult doctrine on its own terms. I've worked countless hours to decipher the cult's coded language, and I do mean coded. That's how the cultists describe it. I hope this book can, in many ways, serve as your dictionary so you can decode that language too. As we begin the queering of the American child, we would like believers and non-believers alike to consider the following question. What would you do if you thought your children were skipping school to join a religious cult? It's best to begin thinking about your answers now. So that's the introduction of the book. Like I said, you should definitely buy this book. I think it'll open a lot of eyes. It'll help gain traction in the fight against this cultural revolution that's destroying our country. I'm just gonna put the put it back up on screen quick. You can get it, but you can get it Amazon, Barnes and Noble, most of the bookstores. I put a link in the description to all the places that you can find the book. I also put a link to the authors of the book, their Twitter accounts, Logan Lansing and James Lindsay. So follow them. You'll learn a lot from them. But like I said, I highly suggest getting this book, and I will be referring to it probably on a somewhat regular basis because people need to be aware of this, and this will be helpful in the fight against this woke revolution that is attacking our country and destroying our country. Okay, so thanks a lot for joining, and we'll see you next Thursday night.